we also have this issue of missing the local context when it comes to providing education. So what I mean is, say for example, a business student, when they're studying business courses in a university in Bangladesh, they're actually following the curriculum from a foreign country, most prominently North American countries. That's not necessarily bad, but the thing is, we just don't have the local context there at all. Like, we are learning how McDonald's operate in New York City, but we are not necessarily learning how it operates, how a similar business could operate in the old Dhaka, where everything is very different. Everything, the way of doing things, the way we communicate, the way the thought process works, everything is very different.
Welcome to Breaking Silos Collective, the show where we inform you how to break silos and why it actually matters. I'm Doris Carini, and I'm the co-host of today's show, and I'm also the East-West Center Ambassador for Europe. I'm part of the XPD program, which stands for Experiential Professional Development. This Breaking Silos Collective series is a special one produced in collaboration with the East-West Center, and we are interviewing 15 of their 2021 Innovation for Sustainable Development fellows. Today, I'm very happy to have one of them on the show. I'm glad to introduce Mr. Maruf Hossain from Bangladesh. And he is one of the 15 fellows who are East-West Center alumni or young experts in the fields of art, education, health, environment, or disaster resilience. A little bit about Maruf and his organization. Maruf is, like I said, from Bangladesh, and his organization is called Banglar Patshala Foundation. And their goal is to actually build an interactive platform that's capable of connecting regional and international thought leaders to actually help young adults and the youth in Bangladesh. They also want to help to facilitate thought-provoking ideas, innovations, and actions. I'm very excited to learn how Maruf got involved. He said he's been active with this organization since 2009, which is quite a long time. Maruf is a financial service professional who's working now in Canada for a company called Wealthsimple. And he has worked in the banking system in Bangladesh for many, many years. And he also earned an MBA from the Scheidler College of Business of the University of Hawaii. I'm very excited to welcome Maruf on the show. Maruf, I hand it over to you. I've already said a lot. Please tell us a little bit about Banglar Patshala and how you got involved and what the goal of the entire organization is.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Doris, for inviting me to this interview. Really glad to be here. And thanks for the awesome introduction. So Banglar Pathshala has been very close to my heart for such a long time now, almost 12 years. And 12 years is a long time, and you don't stick to something for 12 years if that doesn't have a profound impact on yourself or the things you care about. So yeah, I think Banglar Pathshala, let me tell you a little bit about the organization to just give the viewers an idea of what we do and how we do. And well, actually, I need to tell a little bit about the education system in Bangladesh, particularly the higher education, so that we can create the context on what we are working on. So the higher education in Bangladesh, I think we have literally like millions of students who are graduating from the higher secondary education level and trying to go to the undergrad level each year. So because Bangladesh is a really populous country, we don't have any shortage of students, but we do have shortage of proper higher education, I would say. And what I mean is there are a couple of drawbacks or a couple of limitations that Bangladesh as a country faces when it comes to higher education. First thing is that we do not, even though it's been almost 50 years since the independence of the country, I think the policymakers are still lacking uh, this. Policymakers is still lacking this idea whether to make higher education a privilege or should it be a fundamental need for all the students. So, because we are still not sure about that, I think there has been many times half-hearted approach, and higher education institutions do not get proper funding, do not always have the proper infrastructure. So what it creates is in return, it just lacks the support it can ideally provide to the students. So students are always often not so prepared for the job market, and there is always gaps. That's one thing. And of course, at the same time, uh, we also have this issue of missing the local context when it comes to providing education.
Mhm.
So what I mean is, say for example, a business student, when they're studying business courses in a university in Bangladesh, they're actually following the curriculum from a foreign country, most prominently North American countries.
Mhm.
That's not necessarily bad, but the thing is, we just don't have the local context there at all. Like we are learning how McDonald's operate in New York City, but we are
Mhm.
not necessarily learning how it operates, how a similar business could operate in the old Dhaka, that where everything is very different. Everything, the way of doing things, the way we communicate, the way the thought process works, everything is very different. So this is missing, and of course, many of the courses that's in demand, they do not offer it in the local language, that's Bangla.
Mhm.
So because many students they're not really used to having this English medium throughout their first primary or secondary or higher secondary education, all of a sudden they're now exposed to English as a medium of instruction, and there is so that's why it just takes a lot of time to get used to it and get the most of it. So because of these reasons that we identified, there have been gaps. So students are often ill-prepared and cannot really meet the requirement of the job or the real life when that time comes. And that's when we thought, as an organization from Banglar Patshala, that okay, maybe this is something we can work on. I mean, educational system, to work with education system, this is a very vast thing. We need a lot of resource, a lot of funding, a lot of time, a lot of effort. But as a very small organization, we can only do so much. And I thought, okay, maybe we can start with identifying this particular gap and work to contribute or bridge some areas that's within our capacities. So that's how Banglar Pathshala actually started,
Mhm.
with this goal of bridging the gap or bridging this disconnect. And uh, one quick thing here, Banglar Patshala, this word or this term, it actually means the school of Bengal. And our goal is to provide education that can actually bridge the gap between students and other resources that they need to for proper education or proper learning. So how we work, it's it's actually pretty simple if we just put it in an outline format. Like we first identify a theme that's relevant to the people, relevant to the students. For example, it can be something very recent or something that's really in demand or something that has been a lot talked about. For example, it can be an environment justice, or it can be social economics or culture or literature. It can go in many different directions. Every few months, we choose a particular theme that we want to work on, and then we develop a very robust a curriculum or a syllabus, you can say, that we want to communicate or want to teach to the students. And then we find who are the experts, who are the research people in these areas. We communicate with them, and we make sure that these experts, they're not only experts because we think that they're experts, they're nationally recognized, they're true experts and nationally and internationally recognized. They're professors, they're researchers, scholars, journalists, or just subject matter experts who have been working in these areas for long times and build their reputation over time. So once they agree that okay, this is something they're willing to discuss, and they can spend their time communicating and interacting with the students, then we set a list of 5, 10, 12 speakers or lecture providers, and then we set up everything else. That's like the logistic setup, and the last part is communicating with the students or the target audience for whom we're arranging all of these things, right? So our activities so far have been based mostly in the city of Dhaka. That's the capital city of Bangladesh. And most of the activities, most of the events or seminars, workshops we conduct is based in the University of Dhaka. It's not necessarily only the students of University of Dhaka that we're targeting, but as a location or as a center, that's very prominent. So it's easy for students from all over the city to come to that place and attend the events. That's why we chose that.
Okay.
And yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. My question was actually, you saying that it's currently at the university in Dhaka, the main capital of Bangladesh. So are you also trying to bring the curriculum that you're developing to other universities in other areas of the country, or are you focusing mostly on Bangladesh capital right now?
So why we chose Dhaka is just to make things easier for us from an arrangement perspective. We are arranging all these events or most of these events in the premises of University of Dhaka, but it's not necessarily it's a Dhaka University program or something like that. Not at all. But it's just for the logistics purpose or just for the ease of everyone to come in and attend. But of course, we are trying to expand to other cities as well. We have had a couple of programs outside of Dhaka city. And sometimes, only recently after the pandemic started, we had to go online for the most recent event we had. So that's also opening new doors for us.
Yeah, I would think that especially the pandemic and trying to reach maybe students also in other areas, that the virtual format could be a new avenue to explore. Are you saying, Maruf, that most of your programs so far have been held in classrooms where students attend? And if so, how many students do you usually reach for one of those workshops?
Right. Yes. So most of the events and activities that we arrange, these are in classrooms or auditoriums or things like that. In terms of participation, it depends really a lot on the type of events. For example, if we are having a study circle, most of the time the participant size would be maybe 30 to 50 to begin with in each session, but it can go as much as 200 as well, depending on the facility we are using. But if it's a conference or a seminar, you then usually get a lot of more participation. It easily goes beyond 200. And some of the international conferences we have held, they actually had more than 1,000 participants at all times, national and internationals.
Okay, so you're saying that Banglar Pathshala, you have seminars, reading groups or study circles, and international conferences. It was actually one of the questions from one of the co-fellows also, who is also in the Innovation for Sustainable Development program with the East-West Center. What are the types of events that you are hosting? And if so, do you have numbers of participants and attendance over the time of years that you've been involved? Maybe a vague number.
Absolutely. So most frequently held events are the study circles and lecture series. Sometimes it's a little challenging to distinguish between the two because we invite the speakers and they basically lead these sessions. So study circles and lecture series, distinguished lecture series, that would be, I think, so far we have had more than 200 lecture series and more than 12 12 study circles, and each of these study circles had multiple sessions in them throughout the year or throughout the semester, things like that. And we have had three international conferences. I think it's more than 12. I'm not sure about this particular number, but when it comes to seminars, we have had many seminars as well, dozens of seminars. And a couple other things, we do provide awards as well in three different sectors in Bangladesh. That's really that we feel is very important. One is constitution, one is literature, and one is philosophy. And these awards are now really valued highly in the culture, in the media, and in the culture of Bangladesh. So that's something we are proud of. And of course, we have also published books. We haven't published as many as would have liked to, but we are really, really trying to focus more as we are trying to utilize the resources and resources we have. Yeah.
That sounds like a lot of great accomplishments in the last years. How big is your team, and how are you funding your organization? It seems like international conferences, lecture series, that needs a lot of team members to make this happen.
Absolutely. You're right. So this is all about a teamwork, but I think I have to mention about the founder of this organization. The founder of the organization is Ahmed Javed Chaudhry. He is a true leader and truly breaking silos for last 12 years. And under his leadership, he's a co-founder. And in the board, we have prominent members from Bangladesh civil societies. And of course, we have a lot of volunteers. The number of volunteers, it varies a lot depending on the events we use. But the core number of people that is always there, I would say, is only 4 to 5. But again, we depend a lot on volunteers. And when it comes to funding, it's very interesting because in the beginning, when the journey started, the founders basically had to put the money from their pocket for such a long time, or depend a lot on the donations that would come through, and that will still be difficult to get. But over time, when the reputation was built, and we could provide that, could prove that we are actually adding value and providing some true value, then it was relatively easier to get funding from corporations or government institutions. And also a lot of support we get is from the media to promote our events. So we have good relationships with the media. That is really, really important, because that can get also very expensive.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Actually, because you're talking about this, Avi from Indonesia, one of your co-fellows, he had that question, what the strategies are to raise awareness for your platform. And the second question he had, or it's related, he said that he knows of similar platforms that are now growing throughout Southeast Asia, and he wants to know what your competitive advantage is compared to other existing ones. So you're saying that you have a value, and how are you promoting that?
Yeah, well, actually, I think when it comes to promoting this organization, we are still very much nonprofit and not really thinking in the commercial terms yet. But I understand the idea. This is really important to have a sustainable model and to create a competitive advantage where it's easier to get fund. So that's a great question, actually. So I think our competitive advantage comes from the quality we provide, and also the type of I would say the area we operate at. This is something at least in Bangladesh, we don't have a lot of other organizations who are working with the same concepts or same ideas or the same goals, or at a capacity that we are able to operate at. So that's something we consider as a competitive advantage. And of course, the reputation, that's the biggest advantage we have. This is something that nobody can build overnight. It takes a long time and effort to do it. So that's another advantage, I would say. But of course, we again at the end of the day or end of a cycle, the challenge always remains how to make it sustainable. And I believe over the last couple of years, we have started to see the momentum going in our favor. That okay, it's relatively easier to reach out to organization for sponsorship, even to the government organization who are like extremely critical about scrutinizing everything. And we have been able to prove that okay, we're very transparent, we're very eager to provide exactly what we're saying. So they're willing to fund as well. So yeah, these are the advantages and all the models we're following at this point.
Yeah, that's interesting what you're saying about gaining that reputation takes a long time, and the organization has been around since 2009. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm wondering, and it was also the question of Soko from Mongolia and as well from Elton from the Philippines. You said currently you're only hosting events in classrooms, auditoriums, and so on, but both of them had the question if your platform is accessible through the internet, and if so, how do you overcome the possibility of difficulty to access internet or internet connectivity in more rural areas of your country?
Right, great question. Well, actually, as I mentioned, so far it has been all or like mostly based on the classroom. We call it like classroom outside classroom for the education. But I think going forward, we're definitely looking into more avenues to reach new set of audience who are located across the country, across Bangladesh. And because we are talking about internet, possibly we can open our contents up to anyone accessing the web from any part of the world, right? So I understand that comes with its own set of challenges, like as Soko mentioned, the internet, the availability or accessibility of internet. That's a challenge in many rural parts. But I think that's something we have to start anyway, because right now we feel that over the last 12 years we have accumulated so many contents, so many resource materials that we need to open up and provide to everyone who needs access to it. And at the same time, I mean, one way or other, the pandemic actually opened up opportunities for us. Before the pandemic, the focus was mostly on in class. But after the pandemic, we started to see that okay, many educational institutions, all the traditional educational institutions, they had to go online. They had to provide their students with the infrastructure or the facilities they need to join classes online, right? So we are actually trying to ride that wave as well, because in last 1 year or 1.5 years, many students have known that okay, this is how it works, the distant learning or online learning. We are thinking of utilizing that model as well. So that's not easy. I mean, still the internet speed or accessibility or availability challenges remain, but we are confident that once we start and once we are able to provide value, we will see more and more participation from distant part of the country. And of course, it's from our part, what we can do is provide it to the audience, and then it's up to so many other factors how they can actually use it. But we want to do our job, of course, continue our in-class learning, and at the same time open it up to the global audience.
Wonderful. And like you're saying, you're trying to ride that wave of change of also learning how others do the online education and the distance learning, and hoping that more students feel actually very comfortable with just going online and learning about all the important things that they want to know.
That's correct.
Maruf, you said that you have so much content that you're creating. How are you doing the quality control for all that content?
Well, that's a great question. To be honest, this is the biggest challenge or biggest part of the project. Over the last 12 years, from all these study circles, lecture series, conference, seminars, we have accumulated a lot of contents. And these are really valuables valuable because these are coming directly from the experts and coming through the interactions and speeches from them, right? So when it comes to providing it to the students or to whoever need this, quality control is really important. And the way we are doing it is getting professional help. This is not something we can depend solely on volunteers. We actually need professional help. So people who are experts in these areas, like people who are working in, for example, the news media, who are able to deal with a lot of contents at all time and summarize it, like do the proofreading, do the editing, and then provide it to their audience. We're seeking those kind of help as well. And of course, at the same time, for many of the audio contents, we're trying to take technical help from media, again, going back to the media professional, to make it, to summarize these things, make it really short and concise for audience to just download as a podcast or download as a or just access it in YouTube in short sessions. So this is a long-term project we have, and we really believe that once it's done, this will be a great resource for all the students and researchers as well.
Wonderful. Thanks for telling us about how complex that entire process actually is. One question that Namrata from India had was, how do you help students from vernacular background develop communication skills, especially to a diverse audience who doesn't speak the language? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's actually one of the challenges I think we have faced a lot in the beginning, because when we're just getting started, I mean, we know what we are trying to deliver, but at the same time, the audience, they come from different backgrounds, different skill set, or different understanding, or different. They're just at different levels when it comes to the audience. So over time, we have developed this understanding that, okay, if we develop this curriculum in this particular way and communicate clearly with the research people that, okay, this is the audience level, this is the level of knowledge or understanding they have, and this is what we are trying to get. So they actually customize their speech and customize the lecture in general to suit to that particular audience set. So that's one of the ways we are addressing this challenge. And at the same time, we also have a lot of reading materials for each of the sessions. And of course, we do rely on our own language, that's Bangla. So in the classroom or in wherever, all the resources they're getting is mostly not in Bangla, but here they're hearing everything, all the speeches in Bangla, all the interactions are going in the language they want in Bangla. And of course, the reading materials, those are all in the local language as well. So that makes our job a lot easier, I would say.
Great. And the second question, which is also related to how to reach a very diverse audience, is from Elton from the Philippines. He says, how are the published educational materials catering to students with learning disabilities?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I mean, I think when we decided to start our work, or how we can add value, how we can provide the greatest service from our end, we had to start small. We had to go with what we can say, like the lowest hanging fruit. Wherever we felt we can start and impact the most, we can work there. So unfortunately, that doesn't always cover all parts or all people with different learning skills or abilities. So this is something I think we will explore more in the future, how we can reach to different audience who have special needs. So this is something for the future, but this is something definitely we have in mind going forward.
Yeah, to make it an inclusive learning platform.
Absolutely.
Again, it seems like your organization could employ a lot of team members to make all this happen, to reach the wide audience of students in Bangladesh.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Maruf, can you tell us a little bit? I assume you've been involved in many study circles or in the conferences and so on. Can you tell us a story where you felt like the work we're doing is really impactful, like maybe a eye-opening little event or a scene or something that you experienced working with this organization and with students in your country?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I will go with one story of my own. So when I just started out as a volunteer with this organization back in 2009, so as I mentioned, we depend a lot on volunteers, and I was one of the volunteers there. And at that time, we were arranging this session for it was a study circle on a literature topic, and we actually invited one of the authors, a very prominent author from Bangladesh, to our study circle. And I was given the responsibility to pick her up from her residence and bring her to the event. And I think the interaction I had during this little period of maybe 1 hour or so with the author, this opportunity that I got to interact closely with her, like just very easy stuff. I have, like from my childhood, I have seen her in the medias all the time because she's very prominent. But I had really, I was a little scared. Okay, how would I approach? How would I talk? How would I interact? But when I got this actually option to interact with her and communicate, I saw it was like she was so down to earth, and my whole perception actually changed on like how simple a person can be, even though they're like at a really high level in their professional career or in general. And this is something that every participant at some point feels when they're part of this organization, because these people who are volunteering their time and effort to provide value to the students, they the students are actually getting time, like face time, and they're able to ask questions, they're able to get answers. And this just makes so much difference when you can do it closely with people who you have always seen from very distance. So I think this was an eye-opening experience that okay, things can be very simple, but at the same time you can reach so much height. So yeah, that was one thing. And of course, another thing I would like to mention is when you are involved with this organization for a period of time, maybe for a few years, being involved in all these different activities, one skill anyone can expect to develop is how to communicate uh, in a in very different setups, how to arrange events, what are the logistic things involved in making a successful event. And this goes a long way in building the capacity within the volunteers that can actually later on help the students, help the volunteers in the professional life as well. So yeah.
That's great. It seems like your organization is trying to use different teaching methods. Like you said, maybe being a volunteer and organizing and helping, but then also making very prominent leaders or researchers or writers, like in your example, more reachable or touchable.
That's
Like,
correct.
right? And events like that could definitely lead to a life-changing decision or a next step in a student's life. So that's wonderful. Maruf, you mentioned in the introduction a short sentence that you call your program like classroom outside of the classroom. Is that what you mentioned by it? Like really taking the entire concept of teaching outside of the classroom and changing it? Or how would you sum that up?
Well, I believe technically we can say this is more like a supplementary education to whatever the students are learning in class in an academic setup, institutional setup. So whatever gaps there are, we're trying to address those particular gaps. We're not trying to deal with the entire curriculum they're going through, but we're providing the education on a from a like education that's contemporary, that's important, and that's relevant to the current situation, current world around them. So this is a supplementary education. It cannot necessarily replace the traditional education, but at the same time it can add so much value to whatever they're learning in the classroom.
Great summarized. Can you tell us a little bit more about the future goals? Like, I mean, it seems like it takes a long time to really change the educational system in a country like Bangladesh. But what are the short-term and then long-term goals for your organization? Just to say it in very short points.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think short and long-term goals, we do have all of them. So short-term goals, of course, right now with this awesome mentorship and funding that we received from East West Center, uh, this kind of funding that helps us get started on the long-term goals, but at the same time, this help us meet the short-term goals. For example, the way we're trying to go online to make an online presence, this is something that like if I go back 2 years, that was something in the long run goals, but now because of changed scenarios, this has become one of the short-term goals. So how to make an online presence and how to create an impact online, bringing everyone together. And yeah, this is something definitely one of the short-term goals. And at the same time, I would say not a short-term or a long-term. It's more like a medium-term goal that's bringing scholars and resource people from outside Bangladesh. That's something we are trying to achieve as well. Because again, this goes along with the first short-term goal, that's online presence. Because it's online, we can reach out to people who are not located in Bangladesh, but still who are available and willing to spend time. And of course, we feel that they can add so much value. They will be useful to our cause. So we can reach out to them and invite them in the near future. That's one of the goals we have. And of course, in the long run, we want to make sure that this organization remains sustainable. That's the biggest challenge and biggest goal as well. When we want to create a system, where what runs itself should not necessarily depend on a person or two persons. It should be a standard operating procedure that can just run itself. Just plug in the numbers and people, and they can just do it. So this is the long-term goal we have.
Well, that's a great goal to work towards. And you mentioning that you want to reach outside of Bangladesh. I mean, you're currently not living in Bangladesh. You're one of them who's already very far away, but yet still connected to your home country. Seems to be a good starting point, right? Reaching out to your network and getting
That's
them.
right. Yeah, that expense can definitely help.
Great. Maruf, you mentioned the awards, the 3 awards that you are giving with Banglar Patshala to students and fellows. Can you tell us a little bit more how that works? You said you have 3 awards, but how many students do receive the awards, and how many applications do you get? Or can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing I would like to clarify before I get into detail. So these award programs, these are not necessarily targeted to the students. So this is these awards are given to whoever contributes most in those categories that we provide awards to.
Okay.
So it can be a student, but it can be actually to anyone who have contributed significantly in those areas in those given years.
Okay,
So
got
yeah, the award categories are literature, constitution, and philosophy. Well, we do see a number of literature awards, so that's not necessarily unique, but the panel we have for judging who would be awarded or who would be nominated. So I think those are the members of the panel are really special people and recognized or respected by everyone. So that gives us an advantage that, okay, this award means something. This award is prominent because these are chosen, because of the way these are nominated or evaluated by these panel members. Other 2 awards, constitution and philosophy, these are actually unique in Bangladesh because, as you can imagine or guess, like constitution or philosophy, these are not very easy to understand topics. So there has not been a lot of work done in these areas at least in recent times, that actually can motivate the young students to contribute or learn more about these things. So, and is somehow actually also kind of absent in the traditional media as well, like how to
Mhm.
talk about it, who are the experts in it, what is the impact of constitution in our day-to-day lives, what are the impact of having a philosophy, or so it's just like we have vague ideas about it, but we
Mhm.
just cannot connect it with our everyday lives. So that's when we thought, okay, this is something that's important, because in the long run, these things are actually shaping the way our nation thinks, right?
Mhm.
So it's important that we give proper importance and recognitions to people who are actually dealing with this and have dedicated their lives to contribute in these areas. So the publishers who publish books, the authors who writes those, or whoever are contributing in some ways, they're actually recognized through these award programs. In particular, these two categories. So I think we are really proud that have been able to provide this for a few years now, and we got a lot of appreciation. And this, I think, the biggest achievement for us was uh, when we hear these words from prominent people that okay, these are really eye-opening. We all know this is important, but we just never gave enough importance to this or enough recognition to this.
Mhm. Maruf, can you please tell us more how Banglar Patshala connects to the Sustainable Development Goals?
Yeah, absolutely, Joyce. This is a great question. I think many organizations in Bangladesh, like at government organizations and not-for-profit organizations, they're contributing directly to this SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals from UN. And this is really important for us as a nation to achieve these goals within the stipulated time frame. So I think we are very happy that Banglar Patshala Foundation as an organization have been able to contribute directly to this initiative as well as a partner of East-West Center in this particular time. So the way we are trying to contribute is by providing quality education, and by doing that, we are contributing to providing a decent work and economic growth of the country. And at the same time, the activities and event we conduct, if we're able to achieve these goals, achieve our target from these events, in the long run, this will develop the capacities from of the youth, and in return, we will see going forward like reduced inequalities in the country, because everyone is more uh, has more understanding on these issues. And of course, the peace or justice or strong institutions, these are the things we strive to have as well. And of course, everything we do at the end leads to one thing, that's the making this planet a healthy place to live in terms of not only physical health but also mental health. So these are the 5 ways we're trying to um, contribute directly to the UN SDG.
Thank you. That's really wonderful to see how many different levels your organization tries to actually make change and contribute to change. And like you said, it's all interrelated, and we're all hoping for a healthier planet and therefore have healthier and happier people on it. Maruf, can you just at the end tell us a little bit more? What does breaking silos mean to you? And what advice would you give someone who wants to break silos in their own communities for sustainable development?
Breaking silos. Well, I think our organization is from the very beginning, it's all about breaking silos. I'll give you some examples actually. I'll not make it very like theoretical, but it's just like practical examples of how we did it so far. But of course, there are a long way to go. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, we operate a lot of activities and events that's held in the University of Dhaka premises, right? And fortunately or unfortunately, the University of Dhaka, this is a buzzing place for political activities as well. So most of the organization who have been able to run their activities successfully in this particular premises or campus, one way or other, they at some point have to be affiliated with some kind of political activities. And this is, in the long run, with the change of political power, it can be very beneficial or very damaging, depending on which side you fall into. But to our credit, or this was a goal from the very beginning for us, we have not been affiliated with any political sides, but at the same time, we have been able to continue for such a long time, just because we can provide so much value. So political organizations, they did not try to interfere with us, and we did not try to interfere with them as well. We just did our work. We got appreciation, we got support from everyone. This is very rare, and that shows that, okay, if we have strong commitment to something and a very nice work ethic, or ethical principle in general, to just focus out at work, it can happen no matter where you are. So this is something I'm really proud of. And I would say another thing that has been proven over the last 10 to 12 years for us is quality always wins. When we are trying to provide this supplementary education at a very low cost, or at least sometimes it's at almost no cost, like students can use their pocket money to just register for an event and come and attend. I mean, they don't have any other initiative other than learning or gaining knowledge from these things. But still, we have seen a sustainable growth in participation. We have seen so many repeat participants over the years that has given us confidence that, okay, we're doing really good, because otherwise these students or these participants, they have no reason to come to us when they're not getting paid, or they're not able to add it in their certificate necessarily. But because they're gaining knowledge and they think, okay, this has practical implications, they're coming again and again. So that shows quality always wins, and that gives us more confidence to take on more challenges and go even bigger. And lastly, I would say, again, that goes back to the quality and non-political affiliation. So we have seen in last couple of years in particular, that when we approach to media, or when we approach to some organizations for maybe sponsorship or some other kind of support, we do receive more favorable response from them that many organizations cannot even imagine. And this is possible just because of the reputation we have built over time. So these are the things that really makes me proud. And one thing I, at the end, of course, want to mention is the founder of this organization, or the co-founder of the organization, Amit Javed Chaudhary, is an exemplary leadership. I mean, has exemplary leadership skills. Like literally, the way he lives his life or conducts himself, carries himself, like dealing with all that maybe top 50 or 100 experts in the country, but at the same time being a very low profile. That shows that, okay, if you're committed to your work and focus on the work, you can actually get a lot done without being in the limelight at all. So that inspires me as a person, and I think anyone can take inspiration from this as well.
Well, thank you, Maruf, also for your commitment. It takes a lot of good role model, like you mentioned, and leading to keep a volunteer involved for that many years in an organization. So thank you also for that. Are there any final thoughts or any information that you would like to share with our viewers at the end of this video?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would again like to thank East West Center for partnering with Banglar Patshala Foundation. This has been a tremendous achievement for us to be able to get the mentorship of an organization as big and as famous as East West Center. So this is great, and of course, a big thanks to the XPD team located in Hawaii, in Europe, in Asia, and everywhere else. So I think this project is great, and in the future we would of course encourage continuing with this kind of programs that definitely encourages the fellows and whoever wants to participate. And in return, all the people or organization involved with these initiatives, they get benefited. So big thanks and kudos to everyone involved.
Thank you, Maruf. And thanks for the hard work that you're putting in to help change the whole system in your country. Maruf, I thank you for being on the show with us today, but I also thank all our viewers for watching. I hope this was as insightful to you as it was to me. I really learned a lot, and I'm so thankful to be involved as well and learn about all these innovative projects. If you want to learn more about Maruf and his organization, please find the links in the description box below. If you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe. There will be more interesting interviews coming up with more innovation for sustainable development fellows. For today, I say thank you from me, Doris Carini from Breaking Silos, and our interviewee today, Maruf. Thank you for being on the show, and I hope to see you all again soon. Bye-bye.